Okay, so it seems that the debate surrounding the Illuminate cultist enemies and their uncertain fate is getting more spicy now that this Void arc is almost done, and players have realized that this is all we're going to be getting for our quote unquote major update. I want to preface that I mostly like all of the new content, but as I said in my previous video, it is not enough. 2 enemies is not enough. A few new missions, which we're not even sure are going to stick around after this arc ends, is not enough. None of it changes the fact that the squids, quote, are in a terrible state for enemy and objective variety. And I don't mean like objective as in this is objectively true. I mean just, missions, side objectives, stuff like that. And now there is this idea going around on Reddit and Twitter specifically, because of fucking course it would come from there, that it is somehow the community's fault for expecting cultists even though they were never officially promised and only leaked. And I could see where this is coming from, but this is a really stupid idea because, how dare you expect to fight more aliens in the alien faction, even though, in the first game, Illuminates were almost all aliens with only a few robots, even though the cultist content was almost done, like 90% done, with certain units that were basically finished and ready to be dropped into the game. Stuff that was still being updated for a while, stuff that is still in the game as we speak, even after, Omens of Tyranny released. And it's our fault that we expected it?
You serious?
Listen, I know that no leak is ever guaranteed to be in a final product. Content gets cut all of the time. I get it. It happens. But to have such content, make it so far into development with continuous updates, and then be shocked when a large portion of your audience believes that content is coming is absolutely foolish, especially when the developers do not communicate well at all. They only talked about the Space Wizards a week or so before Devoid of Liberty released. They had years to talk about this stuff and only did so recently on a random YouTube channel with less than 1,000 subscribers. I'm not knocking the guy who owns this channel, by the way. He seems like a cool dude, and his videos are pretty well made from what I've seen. Definitely better than mine anyways. It's just, weird that this is where Arrowhead decides to talk about the cultists and what's going on with them. This is so obscure, this video was so obscure that it took days for anyone to notice it. Even then, they don't do a good job clarifying if they meant the content is permanently scrapped or just delayed, which is partially what's causing this big controversy. How can you blame anyone for being confused and or disappointed? Imagine if we had the Terminids, the bug faction, except there are no actual bugs besides the warriors. All of the rest of the enemies are either hostile plants or other animals that got parasitized by the bugs, or the automatons, except there are no automatons, no bots, besides devastators. You're just fighting cyborgs and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, those are still cool ideas, but it's not what the player base would expect, especially looking at Helldivers 1 for reference. The players expected cultists. The players wanted cultists. We want to fight space wizards. We want all this content that, again, was nearly done and had more to it than the current base roster has. The Illuminate in their current state are a mustard cupcake. What the hell does that mean? Well, I get this analogy from a Team Fortress 2 YouTuber named Zesty Jesus, a controversial figure in his own right, but I'm not going to be getting in any of that because it's not important. But during his whole casual mode versus quick play mode debate that's been going on for the past year and a half or so, he makes an analogy that casual mode is a mustard cupcake while quick play is a actual cupcake. People expect, cupcakes to taste sweet. Nobody expects a mustard cupcake. Nobody expects to have a mustard on their cupcake because that just doesn't happen. And, that's exactly what the Illuminate are. People expected a cupcake with delicious sweet frosting, and what they got was mustard. It's technically still a cupcake, and you can technically still eat it, and who knows, you may even like it, but it's not what you picture when you think of a cupcake. Illuminate. You don't expect zombies when you think of Illuminate, you expect aliens. And it's not that cultists and the Great Host or Invasion Fleet, whatever you want to call them, it's not that they have to be mutually exclusive either. Cultists and the Invasion Fleet can absolutely coexist. They should coexist, in my opinion. I think they complement each other really well. You can keep doing zombies if you really want to. You can keep giving more overseers if you really want to. But if that's all you're going to do, especially with drip feeding this content at such a slow pace, players are not going to stick around to play Illuminate. What do you think is going to happen once this void stuff ends? The active player base is once again going to stick to either bots or bugs or whatever the major order is going to be. Illuminate have been and will continue to be the least played faction by a significant margin because they are boring. Also because a lot of the balancing on them is questionable, but mostly because they are boring. And they are boring because they have so little variety. Now, as I said before, obviously cultists won't fix the content problem alone. Illuminate still need other things that I touched on in the last video. But cultists would add variety. Cultists would make games against squids more dynamic and more interesting. It would just make the faction more interesting in general, both from a gameplay perspective and from a storytelling lore perspective. And it would make more players stick around. And that is why cultists matter.